Super. With no further ado, I can see we are a very good number today, 49 people. So thanks a lot for joining us today and sharing your time. I know end of the year is always busy, so we really appreciate this. So a few words on the working group for those of you that might have not joined one of the webinars we organized before or might not be familiar with the working group. So the area-based approach working group is a working group of the Global CCCM Cluster. We have a web page on the Global CCCM Cluster website. So I'm going to link it in the chat later, but you can also scan the QR code. In this page, you can find links to different resources the working group has been working on, including this matrix that we call the area-based site management resource matrix, that is a collection of a repository of links that might be useful for knowing more about area-based site management, or if you already know a lot, to have further resources that can help you further developing your programming. So I am Elena. I work for IOM, and I'm one of the coordinator of the area-based approach working group, together with my colleague Isabel. Isabel, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Isabel. I'm the Global Site Management Specialist for NRC, working with Eleanor to coordinate this group as well. Thanks.
Great. Thanks a lot. So we just introduced ourselves, and we would like now to ask you to introduce yourself as people keep on joining, which is already exciting. We thought that, it's December, we are wrapping up the year. I think it has been quite a ride. We can all agree that 2025 has been quite a ride. So as an icebreaker and an introduction game, we would like to ask you to share in the chat your name, your organization, where you're joining us from, and if you feel comfortable and if you would like to do so, to drop an emoji or a GIF that can represent your year, that can summarize your year in just an emoji or a GIF. So obviously, as a working group coordinator, we were the first one to do this exercise. And so we thought to share our GIF/emoji with you, our respective GIF/emoji with you that represents and summarizes our 2025. So please feel free if you would like to participate, to share in the chat your name, your organization, and where you're joining us from today, your operation. And if you feel like this, to participate in the icebreaker, to share also an emoji or a GIF that can summarize your 2025. Great, I can see people keep on joining. Oh, wow, great. I can see Patrick saying it was awesome. So that's a great start, Patrick. So this is what we need definitely to kick off this 2000 and this last 2025 webinar of the ABA working group. Hopefully there will be more in 2026. Super, over to you, Isabel.
Thanks so much. I'm really glad that we're getting a lot of smiley faces and happy comments in our chat as well. Maybe we take it to the next slide as we move through. Great. So we have a couple of words from the CCCM cluster coordinators, Clementine Favier and Hayo. Would you like to introduce yourselves? And we welcome you to open the session.
Thank you, colleagues. Clementine, would you like to start first?
Sorry, yes, I mean, as you want, either works for me there. But very briefly, Clementine Favier, Global CCCM Cluster Coordinators. Maybe a few words and then I hand over to you there. Yeah. No, I mean, first, I really want to thank Isabelle and Elena and the broader ABA working group for really pushing the work this year on ABA, and I think also pushing through this paper before the end of or before the festive season. I know it's a busy season, but looking at the numbers of colleagues joining on a Tuesday afternoon or Monday afternoon rather, I think it's quite positive to see the interest. I don't necessarily think I will go back on area-based site management and how its origin or the background. I think, as I think most of you are quite familiar, this very much align with the global CCM cluster strategy. One of our strategic priorities is very much providing comprehensive response to displacement that also promote alternative to camps. It's among one of our 8 area of focus on seeking alternative to camps and notably expanding area-based site management. I think what I find particularly interesting looking at this paper, that this paper particularly look at the coordination aspect of ABSM. And I think this year, with the reset, there's been a lots of discussion around the broader humanitarian coordination architecture. And I think this paper helps articulate how CCCM stakeholder or site management stakeholder can operational coordination in ABSM, but also how they understand their role and responsibility. So I do hope that all of you will find this paper as useful as I did find it. But maybe over to you there. I'm sure you will add as well some points. But thanks again to Isabelle and Elena on this work.
Yes, not much to add, Clementine. Colleagues, good afternoon. I'm there. Hi, I'm from the Global CCCM Cluster. And I think I would like first to thank you again, Elena, and Isabelle, and colleagues. It is really impressive to see that we have more than 60 people probably joining in mid-December, which simply illustrates the interest of the colleagues in this working group. And I think we equally are all appreciative of the importance of this as we move ahead. And I think one of the things that I see I'm trying not to repeat what has been already mentioned, but the CCCM, and again, having worked in many countries doing CCCM and managing camps, the area-based coordination is the closest to us than any other actor. There is multiple benefits for us to applying this method in all the areas, but also I think we are the best ones who are able to showcase how this is actually working in the areas where we have multiple camps, and there is definitely a need for us to find an easier way to linking them up together without forgetting those people who are out of camps. While there are still calls for reducing the number of camps, we know that the reality is different. The number of camps is unfortunately and against our will, despite what we are doing, is increasing. It will increase. We are trying to reduce this path of having camps established as a first scenario in many displacement, but again, it will continue happening. So that's why I think this tool is extremely important. I'm very, very glad to see many known faces who are, for me, experts in this area. So your contribution to this working group, but also to the field level discussions will be very much essential. But equally also very happy to see that there are many new names and many new faces whom we are looking forward to learn from, because we as actor here are very much ready to learn from the new arrivals. So please don't shy up when you have ideas or questions to any of the team. Thank you, colleagues, and back to you, chairs.
Thanks so much to you both, and thanks for joining. Next slide, please, Elena. So the area-based site management coordination guidance note comes from discussions we've had with a smaller working group. There's 2 levels of our area-based site management working group, and we have divided them so that there's a smaller group interested in working more closely on those documents. This guidance notes come out of discussions with that smaller group, and an even smaller writing group to make sure we're navigating and supporting the needs of the people who are part of the CCCM working group at this point in time. As you can see, this has kind of led us to focus on the coordination structures and mechanisms and responsibilities for site management in an area-based response, and also touched on key organizational elements that we would be using, from mandates, good systems, good practices and systems, as well as crucially interpersonal communication and skills. We've also looked for field examples of these, which are included in the guidance, as well as making sure we've got plenty of resources and guidelines for anyone who's implementing or looking to use these moving forwards. Next slide. So moving into this a little bit more closely, we look at coordination and site management as the process of sharing information, planning together in pursuit of mutual or agreed upon goals. Through coordination, the site management agencies applying area-based site management framework ensure duplications avoided, participations enhanced, information is shared, humanitarian standards are applied, and human rights are protected. We do this more broadly to focus on, within this, the role of site management as we connect to different stakeholders, making sure to centralize the role of local authorities and community members to make sure that they are well included and incorporated into the decision-making structures that we use within site management. Over to you, Helena.
Thanks, Isabel. And as you were speaking, I dropped the link to the guidance notes, so please feel free to download it. It's on our working group webpage. So in the guidance note, we also spend a few words on looking a bit more in details to the coordination structure, mechanism, and responsibility. For those of you who are familiar with previous resources that were published by the Global CCCM Cluster, we say that in area-based site management framework, coordination happens at two levels, within the area or intra-area and between the areas, or infra-areas. So in this sense, within the area, the site management agency ensures that there is a coordinated approach to service delivery, and also refers to a specific actor gaps and needs for specific services, and ensure that the affected population can participate. When it comes to coordination between areas, this remains a key responsibility of the CCCM cluster that acts at either national or subnational level as relevant, or of mandated area-based coordination mechanism. In terms of coordination activities, although in an area-based site management framework, we acknowledge that these activities might vary also depending on the context of intervention. We categorize the activities in 5 macro categories. So establishing or strengthening coordination system within areas, obviously looking first at what's already existing and what can be strengthened, and if there are no coordination mechanism, establishing a new ones that will also allow for efficient referrals of cases in need of assistance and gaps to competent service providers. Information management to support coordination, including mapping of services, mapping of partners, and mapping of needs, and ensuring that all these information are shared effectively and rapidly with all the competent stakeholders participating in the platform. Supporting and reporting to coordination system between areas, so linking back to what I was saying at the second level of coordination, the between area level, it's essential that there is a two-way communication from the site management agency and the CCCM subnational cluster or mandated area-based coordination platform, and that this coordination and information sharing goes two ways. Obviously, as site management actors, it's essential to promote the engagement of affected communities in coordination, including establishing direct links between the competent service provider and the displacement affected community, sharing relevant information related to services and actors working in the area, and whenever appropriate, establishing and working with inclusive community governance structure. Finally, capacity building that can take different form and can be something that the site management agency can contribute with to strengthen local capacity. So it could be capacity building for authorities or other stakeholders in coordination, community engagement, participation, information management, or other core responsibility of site management. As Isabel mentioned, this is the area-based site management explainer that you can find also linked in our webpage. As Isabel said in the guidance note, we also look at operationalization first at key elements for coordination. These key elements, if you are familiar with the global CCM training package, remain the same, either if you're coordinating in a classic site management response or through an area-based site management framework. So mandate, system, and good practices and interpersonal communication skills are three key elements that are crucial for effective coordination. So on one hand, it's essential that the site management actor fully understand their role and responsibility in coordination within the area, but also the reporting line to the agency or actor that are responsible for inter-area coordination. At the same time, the stakeholders that are participating in the area-based site management coordination should fully understand also the role and the mandate of the site management agency and respect the principle of partnership for an effective coordination. The support of the CCM cluster and in general for the agencies mandated for inter-area coordination is essential in clarifying the mandate of the area-based site management agency and support effective coordination even within the area. System, when it comes to system, it's essential that all the stakeholders that are participating in the platform remain fully accountable. And in this regards, clarity of roles and responsibility can be established through memorandum of understanding or term of reference, clearly outline the systems that are in place and at the local level and the connection between the different coordination layers and levels. And then finally, interpersonal communication skills remain essential for effective coordination. So it's important to practice and develop communication listening skills, cultural sensitivity, the ability to establish consensus and gain trust from the stakeholders participating in the platform and delivering services at area level. Obviously, their commitment to the coordination platform is also essential, but it's a commitment that they can build with effective communication and listening skills. Following these key elements, as Isabel mentioned, we also have a session where we look at some field example and we link resources that can be useful when it comes to operationalizing coordination in area-based site management. Great. And now that we have briefly introduced you the coordination in area-based site management guidance note that once again it's linked in the chat and you can find on our webpage, we want to look at two field examples that from two different perspectives, the cluster perspective and the site management operation perspective, can tell us how we can operationalize coordination in practice and how the colleagues have operationalized coordination in practice in their respective responses. So we will first have Ajim and Walid from the Yemen CCM cluster sharing their experience on area-based site management and before that coordination, area coordination in CCCM. and how they operationalize this from a cluster coordination perspective. And then we will have Francois Guillaume from Haiti, IOM Haiti, looking at how coordination can be operationalized in an area-based site management framework through community resource centers. So with no further ado, I hand over to Ajim and Walid.
Thank you, Elena. And hello.
Thank you so much.
Morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Walid. Thanks for joining us today.
Trying to see if Agim is in the call, but if not, I would just pass greetings on his behalf to everyone in the call. So today we're going to be sharing a little bit of the experience in Yemen, starting with the area coordination in CCCM and building to the ABSM pilot that we're starting in 6 areas in the country. Just around October, we launched the pilot with the workshop to all partners, and we're still in infancy stages with the ABSM, but we can actually have a lot to share with the group about area coordination. To give an overall of the situation to everyone in the call, Yemen's displacement is actually protracted in nature, with most of the IDP sites have been created between 2015 and 2018. The majority of the sites are spontaneous settlements with land being usually owned by multiple landowners per site. So it's characterized by dispersed nature of displacement. We have over 2,000 ITP sites hosting 1.6 million people. Along with the disbursement and the issue of eviction, given the nature of the settlement in most of sites, we also have different levels of access constraints in the country, with one side of the country being a little bit more permissive, while one side is quite constrained, but also pockets in all of sides of control in the country. There exist pockets where access is quite very difficult, and the service gaps are the main character of all. Characterize a lot of the IDP sites in the country, and that has been heightened by recent funding shortfalls. So next we're going to talk a bit about what made area coordination in CCM a natural or organic evolution of how we do business here. But first, we just want to explain what area coordination is, because it's slightly different from the ABSM that we recently talked about. So in area coordination, what we're trying to do is create or operate within an architecture that manages multiple IDP hosting sites. So it's still mainly concentrated around IDP sites, but host community are sometimes included based on partner capacity. But the main focus with area coordination was to try to make the unmanageable load of managing individual sites manageable through doing it collectively per area. It's typically smaller than a subnational hub, but larger than a single site. So it's usually at the district, sometimes at the governorate, or sometimes at an inter-district level. So it can be one district from one governorate and another that actually are quite well connected, like we have in Hajjah in Yemen for Abs, or we had at some point for Abs and Al-Zuhra. So why it's needed, like I said, the scattered sites, the resource constraints that make it almost impossible to have a management structure per site. and the coordination gaps, where even if we do single site management, we have to prioritize certain sites of over others within the same area. That all contributed to why we did it. We started doing it in 2019. How it's done, usually this, I mean, it doesn't necessarily need additional specialized skills than what we already require for single site management. It's just changing the level of operation. So mobile teams that rove between sites, area coordination forums instead of site level coordination forums. So usually partners have regular area level coordination meetings with the service providers that usually operate at the district level. Sometimes they have physical hubs like community centers or community resource centers, which we piloted with DRC in 2019 in Haiti, also another district in Yemen. And it allows for area service mapping, area referral systems, and linked community structures rather than individual disconnected community committees per sites. So this is basically what characterizes area coordination. In terms of coordination framework, the area-based coordination or the area coordination CCM is integrated in that it does connect between site level and subnational level. And it does have direct linkages with the regional coordination teams that are established by OCHA, which can actually sometimes in areas of high need can be actually lower than the subnational level. So there is, but also if as long as they work closely with the subnational coordinators, the link is made through the subnational coordinators. Either way, RCT membership extends to area coordination partners. So they do effectively participate there, and how they participate is through gap risk analysis at area level, doing area response planning, such as preparedness plans or flood contingency map plans, etc. So along with the gap risk analysis, there also is a service mapping done at the area level, advocacy and escalation, and protection mainstreaming. So these are the functions that also allow for area coordinators to be well integrated and well included in the coordination structure, not only for CCCM, but also at interagency level. If you go to the next slide. In this slide, I'm showing you exactly how that looks like in a map. So you will see the solid colors are at the actual hubs, which we have 6 of, and then you'll have the dash or the lines which show the individual areas within the single hubs. I mean, the areas in area coordination are not necessarily well delineated. They change, they're a bit more organic. They change based on the area coordinators' capacity, but also that's other CCM partners that work within that area. So sometimes we just align them based on admin boundaries. But you'd see that at this point, we have a number of areas which have the majority of displacement being also supported through area coordinators with NGOs that are national or international taking the lead on that. So that's just to help you visualize how the coordination system looks like with area-based coordinators within the CCM cluster. But now where we're going, so this all started in 2019, so early, almost immediately after we established the cluster, we saw the need to have some level of area coordination just because of the aspects I've explained about the nature of displacement in Yemen. And 2019, 2024, they were embedded in the cluster strategy through through being included in the coordination system, but also through supporting structured area for us. For 2025-2027, based really on the learnings from the area-based or area coordination and the global learnings of different area-based approaches, as well as the early conceptualization of ABSM. We're moving or we're evolving a little bit with the area coordination to make it a bit more inclusive, to have it also extend beyond coordination functions into operations as well. So having our activities like maintenance, assessments, and monitoring, community engagement, and projects being done more and more at area level for specific defined outcomes that we seek, which are built around community engagement, integrating with solution partners, and community cohesion, building stronger community cohesion through this sharing of whatever resources, limited resources we have among the IDPs and host communities, in a way that makes sense for the context, the current context in Yemen. What we hope from the pilot is to evaluate what actually are we gaining in terms of efficiency, and both in terms of reach and how do we reach, how are we reaching people, and how we are coordinating that reach, and both in terms, but also in terms of scalability, cost efficiency. Does it result in an overall cost-efficient humanitarian response? We want to also use the learning from the pilot to inform how we operate ABSM. So whatever SOP we've drafted now is to kick off the process, but then we're gonna adapt it after the learning of the pilot. We try to also consolidate a package of minimum tools to be used for this approach, and see where we need to roll it out, in which districts we need to roll it out as a priority. But also constantly work in enhancing some kind of formalized approach with mainly OCHA or the inter-cluster coordinations groups, so ICCGs, RCTs, as well as durable solutions groups and frameworks. So that's what we're trying to go ahead with ABSM, or the area coordination 2.0. I think that concludes my presentation, but let's see if we have any other slides. This is the last slide, right, Elena?
Yes, it is. Thanks a lot, Walid. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your presentation. Maybe just like one quick question before we move to FG and Haiti. And then also I want to encourage everyone to share questions in the chat. We already received a couple. We will have plenty of time after the presentation from Haiti to address them to our speakers. So yeah, one quick question to just elaborate a bit on what you said in terms of enhancing and formalizing links with intercluster coordination. So we mentioned this in the guidance note as being crucial for the operationalization of coordination in area-based site management. I was wondering if you have any examples of how this has been done since the first rollout of the area coordination in 2019. So yeah, any examples on how the coordination was leveraged, the area coordination was leveraged by the cluster to support inter-cluster coordination, advocacy, or emergency assistance following flagging gaps.
Yeah. Maybe one example that comes to mind, and I think gives a practical picture of how how we've done it in the past, is the mass eviction or relocation preparedness planning for a mass relocation in the West Coast. So we have an area called Al Haima, which is highly inaccessible, but is quite adjacent to an area that is coordinated by for us by DRC. So for the response planning, all the processes that involve mapping what would be needed to receive people in case they were forcibly relocated to West Coast, as well as actually costing these different gaps to be actually prepared. This work has or required all stakeholders at the area to provide this information and to actually be engaged in the planning. For such an exercise, we relied heavily, if not fully, on the area-based coordination team with the DRC, along with our subnational who was following with them. But that kind of work is basically where we saw is an example of where we saw the area-based coordination as a key element of coordination at area level, because that was actually the only viable way we could do a plan that makes sense. So that's kind of explains or gives an example of the type of coordination done at area level. But happy to give any other examples later in the meeting.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Walid. And I also want to thank you, the CCCM cluster in Yemen and the CM cluster in Ethiopia, because they share pictures that you can find in the guidance notes also. Thanks a lot for your support on this. And now off to IOM 80, we have FG who is going to explain to us how coordination is operationalized through community resource centers in Haiti.
Thanks, Elena. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Hi, my name is FG. On behalf of the IOM CCCM team here in Haiti, I'll be making this really quick presentation on the use of CRCs in area-based approaches to CCCM here in Port-au-Prince. Next slide, please. Right, so just really quickly, just to give you some context on the displacement situation here in Haiti, gang violence and disasters have approximately displaced 1.4 million people, according to DTM, in all of Haiti. Sorry, I think there's a bit of an echo.
It should be solved now.
Okay, great, thanks. And most of the displacement causes IDPs to be still hosted outside sites and in host families. That put a lot of pressure on the existing and limited resources that are being shared by the host communities. So basically, in the metropolitan area of Port-au-Prince, it's the only area in the country where the majority of IDPs are still hosted in majority in sites, as opposed to outside sites, while 98% of IDPs hosted in provinces, so almost all of them are hosted outside sites. So whether they decide to live in rental areas, whether they're living with their social support structures or with host families, and so on. Most of the displacement caused at the moment and in the last few months and this throughout the year is caused by the deteriorating security situation. Most of the gangs are expanding their control outside of Port-au-Prince, vying for control of main highways and so on to kind of enforce taxation of trade. So this has, in the last few months, they've kind of expanded throughout other provinces in the country, notably in Artibonite and in the Centre, which are actually quite close to Port-au-Prince, and where they are currently engaged with the auto defense brigades who are working with the Haitian National Police to kind of stop their advances. You may have also heard this. There's a multilateral security support mission here in Haiti that is UN approved. However, they were recently replaced by a General Assembly decision last month or a couple of months ago by the Gang Suppression Force, which is supposed to, bolster the numbers of the Kenyan police officers, of which there are approximately 7 here in 700, not 7, in Port-au-Prince, with a total of 4,500 personnel in the country. So that is definitely something to keep in mind for next year when it comes to the displacement situation. Here, just to illustrate the map, in the middle of the map in blue, you have the location of one of our CRCs in a place called Delma 31. And around it, you'll be able to see the number of displacement sites that it attempts to cover. Most of the displaced people take shelter in collective centers, so schools, churches, public institutions, ministries, and so on. There are also slum-like informal settlements that have been established by the IDPs. And as you can see here, in total, there's around 435,000 people living in Delma, of which approximately 10% are IDPs living in and outside sites. Next slide, please. So, taking into consideration the very urban context of this displacement situation, area-based approaches have been adopted through the operationalization of 5 CRCs in the country. We've got 2 in the metropolitan area of Port-au-Prince, and we've got 3 working in southern Artibonite, which is a province just north of the West Department of Haiti. We work very closely with partners. We work very closely with the CCCM Cluster in the operationalization of these CRCs. In short, adopting ABA basically allows us to target the affected population groups in specific catchment areas. And in coordination with partners and the CCCM Cluster, we work to coordinate the provision of multi-sectoral interventions in the areas, so not just with CCCM partners, but also with all humanitarian partners working in the area, with social service partners working in the area, with civil society, as well as local authorities. We also do this to support efforts to improve community participation, engagement, and increase household level resilience, whether it is psychosocial resilience, economic resilience, resistance to the various shocks that the IDPs are faced with, as well as challenges. In general, basically, these CRCs are physical platforms that connect people affected by crises with humanitarian and transitional responders in a given catchment area. Very important to note that the CRCs don't only serve IDPs. They would serve any population group living in a catchment area, irrespective of their status. So host communities, internally displaced people, deportees, because we have a lot of deportations from the Dominican Republic for the time being, and a lot of these deportees find themselves stranded at the border with DR, and host communities and so on. These CRCs, like I said, allow for the provision of coordinated humanitarian assistance. These range from ICLA, so legal support and counseling, information sharing, mobile medical clinics, and counseling sessions for mental health and psychosocial support. We also work with different stakeholders, so including community-based organizations, civil society, national NGOs, as well as the local authorities, to conduct community workshops, vocational training, as well as informal education sessions. I think one of the most important things that we are trying to achieve is basically the recognition that we needed to be a bit more innovative in the way that we operationalized CCCM. We had to go beyond the traditional ways of doing camp management, because yes, in in Haiti, IOM with partners and through direct implementation manage 48 sites in the metropolitan area of Port-au-Prince, but there's a large number of IDPs that live outside sites and that we are trying to cover to the best of our abilities. And we realize that the CRCs are one of the ideal ways to be able to do this. Another thing that we needed to really recognize is in protracted crises, we cannot continue just doing pure humanitarian work. We need to start thinking about, not just the short-term impacts of our interventions, but also start thinking about the medium and longer-term modalities of support that we can offer. So basically recognizing the linkages between emergency preparedness, response, and transitions, the CRCs also allow for the implementation of transitional activities and community-led projects that support grassroots approaches to problem solving and solution development. Next slide, please. Great. So just for point number one, for the coordination of multi-sectoral humanitarian responses. So basically, every time there is a shock in the country, whether it's in Port-au-Prince or in the provinces, the CCCM cluster, in coordination with the displacement tracking matrix, so IOM DTM, share what they call emergency tracking tools, where we are able to be appraised of the shocks that caused displacement, the number of households and people that were displaced, where they were displaced from to where they were displaced to, how many new sites were created, and what percentage of these IDPs are living in these sites or outside these sites. So one of the things that we try to do and that we have been piloting in the last month is coordinating these humanitarian responses through the CRCs. So following alerts from DTM and the CCCM cluster, partners managing the CRCs in Port-au-Prince, we try to use mobile approaches to respond to these alerts and shocks together with the host communities and the IDPs in those areas. So just as a quick example, recently there was, I think this is the emergency tracking tool 78 or 79. There was displacement from a neighborhood that is actually right next to the IOM office here into a commune called Tabar. We have a CRC in the commune of Tabar, and in close coordination with the CCM cluster and other partners, we work to deploy mobile health clinics quite quickly to be able to cover for the medical and first aid needs of the people that were recently displaced. We also worked with the common pipeline and the CRC managers to be able to work on targeting of 200 households to proceed with the distribution of hygiene kits, as well as non-food items to these people that were recently displaced by this violence and that are currently not living inside sites. So in essence, for the coordination of multi-sectoral humanitarian responses, the CRCs are used as priority meeting places to share information to communities, identify those directly affected by crises in coordination with the local authorities, and be able to distribute multi-sectoral emergency assistance. Basically, it would be an operational coordination hub, a physical one, where we host operation coordination meetings to prepare emergency responses. And we also try our best to be able to promote the use of CRCs for these kind of interventions. And we are also trying to have as much humanitarian actors and social responders active in the CRCs as possible at any given time to be able to really diversify the services that we can offer, and also support mobilization of the communities that live in a said catchment area. Just to illustrate the ETTs, here on the slide, you have the emergency tracking tool number 80. That is basically a SITREP from DTM and the CCCM cluster, illustrating the displacement of a large number of people due to violent clashes between the auto defense brigades and the gangs trying to go north in a place called Artibonite and Pont-Sondé. We have two CRCs in Saint-Marc, which is right next to where these displacements happened. So this whole coordination mechanism of trying to, coordinate multi-sectoral humanitarian responses through the CRCs is another thing that we are, really working to be able to operationalize in coordination with our partners and the CCCM cluster. Next slide, please. Right. So supporting and reporting to coordination systems between areas. So most of our coordination efforts, as well as our humanitarian interventions, are reported back to the CCCM cluster for adequate coordination between partners who would be intervening in said shocks. So just here on the slide, you'll see that this is un suivi des réponses humanitaires. So it's basically a sitrep on the interventions that were planned and implemented by the partners in response to ETT 80. So after the alert is sent, partners work together to coordinate humanitarian assistance. We then report the work back to the CCCM cluster, which then shares this sitrep that allows us to be able to still identify gaps and coordinate and see what else can be done for the displaced people living in that given area. So as is shown in the slides, we report to the subclusters and the national cluster in Haiti to ensure their integration into the mechanisms of coordination. Most and a lot of this information is also shared through Site Manager. I think I think a lot of partners here are kind of aware of what Site Manager is, but for those who don't, it's a data collection, analysis, and data organization and management platform that allows CCCM partners to operationalize certain CCCM tools in different contexts, and these includes, complaints and feedback mechanisms, site monitoring, service mapping, and in this case, what we do for the CRC is a tool that we call the CRC logbook. Next slide, please. Right. Oh, CRC logbook. All right. Information management to support coordination. So like I mentioned, in coordination with partners, so, IOM in coordination with the cluster, acted AFSI and ICDH. ICDH is a national NGO that we work with in the management of 2 CRCs in Port-au-Prince. We've integrated Zeit into the management of the CRCs. So basically, this CRC logbook allows us to understand priority needs, facilitate follow-ups, and inform evidence-based programming in a given catchment area and in a given CRC. It provides key demographic information on the visitors. We're able to know whether visitors are coming for the first time, for the second or third time, what services they're accessing, where they're coming from, where they were living prior to displacement, where are they living currently after their displacement. This allows us to basically have information on the displacement profile and the visitor profile of people that come to the CRCs. We have sex and age disaggregated data. And if you could just go to the next slide. It allows us basically to know where these people are coming from. So basically, if I select a specific CRC, I want to be able to check, okay, where is this person coming from? What services are they accessing? So if, for example, I have a large number of people coming from a different catchment area, accessing a specific service, we know that we are able to work with the cluster and other partners to be like, okay, these people living in a section communale or a neighborhood that is a bit distant from the CRC are coming here for medical support. Maybe it's worth considering and making an assessment to go and see whether we would want to do a mobile health clinic in those areas that are a bit further from the CRC. We're able to see, again, as you can see on the map, where they're coming from and where they were displaced to. And this operationally provides us with some really important information to be able to be a bit more strategic, tactical, and also a bit flexible when it comes to our programming in the community resource centers. Next slide, please. And in terms of the promotion of engagement of affected communities and coordinations, we work a lot with national NGOs and civil society to host capacity building sessions for communities on different themes. Whether it's related to health, whether it's shelter, community engagement, protection against violence against women and children, gender-based violence, and so on. We also host a number of community-led projects, including, and I'm sure a lot of people here are also implementing these projects. For example, the Women's Participation Project is something that we decided to pilot in the CRCs in Haiti that brought together host community participants as well as IDP participants, and we brought them together to be able to work on mass awareness raising sessions on gender-based violence in the different communities that they are representing. And actually, just yesterday, we heard that they were really going around the communities, going to police stations, stopping police cars, talking to police officers, and raising awareness on this whole thing. So we do work closely with civil society and community-based organizations. And this is really essential for us when it comes to mobilization of the communities living around the CRCs. This allows us to build trust with the communities that live around there, whether they're host communities, local authorities, or IDPs. And this is a really helpful element to consider to be able to, gain acceptance, to gain trust, and also have, very informed and, how do you say, precise targeting practices when it comes to humanitarian responses at the catchment level. Is this the last slide? Right.
This is the last one.
Great, I forgot about this one. Challenges and perspectives. We've, in the HNRP for 2026, working closely again with the CCCM cluster, we've added CRC activities in the HNRP, given the volume of displaced persons in Haiti and taking into consideration the high volume of people living outside sites. One thing from IOM CCCM side is we, if possible and in funding allows, we'd like to open a community resource center at the border, at one of the border crossing points with Dominican Republic, to be able to provide services to both deportees, IDPs, and also host communities, because at the moment, for example, in Belader, which is a commune right next to the border at one of the crossing points, there is a large number of IDPs living in those areas, sharing the same resources with deportees, as well as host communities. And as you well know, we also have a lot of siloed funding mechanisms. So money that is intended for deportees and migrants can't necessarily cater for the services for IDPs and vice versa. So we'd like to be able to de-silo this and change this. And from our perspective, adopting the ABA in such a situation where there are transit centers, IDP sites, and host communities would be quite helpful at that level. We would want to also promote the CRCs among humanitarian actors to increase the volume of activities in the CRCs, and we would do this through coordination and advocacy through the CCCM cluster, the various clusters, OCHA, and the NGO forum. Yeah, and then you'll have these two other challenges on the slides. We want to develop the capacity building of local authorities using the CRCs, because ultimately we know that we will not be here forever, and we would really want to get to a place where we'd be able to co-manage or completely leave local authorities managing these community resource centers in a sustainable way, which kind of builds into the next challenge, which is basically the strategic development of the future of CRCs and how they would fit within the nexus and facilitate the implementation of transitional programs involving transition and emergency aid. I think that's it from my sides, and happy to attend to any questions, if any. Thanks.
Thanks so much, FG. The first question, just from myself and Eleanor, is based around the national and local authorities, which you've mentioned briefly here at the end. We were just wondering, in such a difficult context as Haiti, how you work and coordinate with the local authorities through the CRCs at the moment, or how whether they were set up in coordination with the local authorities.
It's a good question. Thank you. So at the CRC level, we do coordinate to the best of our abilities with the smallest executive representatives of the smallest administrative unit in Haiti called les sections communales. So we work with what we call the CASEC, which is, sorry, I'm trying to translate this, Conseil Administrative Committee for the communal sections, which is normally a group of 3 elected officials at the local level that are supposed to manage the funding for the development of that section communale, and they work closely with the assembly of the section communale, which are also representatives of the local population at that level. The CASEC and the ASEC, so these 2 entities, are basically the connection between the population living in that area and the central government. So these 2 institutions are really important to be able to coordinate with when it comes to mobilization, acceptance of our programs, and making sure that we really engage the population when it comes to our responses. Another entity that we coordinate really closely with is La DGPC, so it's a General Directorate of Civil Protection that we work very closely with in the management of IDP sites, so they are the camp administrators, but also in these areas when it comes to, again, mobilization, awareness raising, and just having a good idea of the displacement situation after shocks, because they are our main counterpart within the government as far as CCCM is concerned.
Thank you so much. That's really useful and great to understand a little bit more about what's going on in Haiti at the moment. We have quite a lot of questions in the chat. I do encourage you all to add more questions or raise your hand if you would like to share your voice with us. I'm going to start by offering the floor, if she would like to take it, to Emmy, just to check the quick question of host communities returnees or IDPs to in the host communities in addition to the sites. I think this was for the Yemen presentation.
Yeah.
Yes, you already said my question. I don't have anything more to add. I'm just wondering if the no worries. I'm just wondering if the area-based coordination was covering for host communities, returnees, and mainly IDPs in the host communities as well, or it is mainly a grouping of sites under an area, and it is still very site-based coordination.
Thanks, Emmy. Maybe also for Walid, as he expands a little bit on this question, maybe he can also take the second question from Awet. How does ABA coordination align with any existing coordination mechanism, and particularly if there are cases of overlapping mandates at subnational level or area level, including with OCHA-led coordination mechanism? So maybe Walid, you can also try to address our question after Emmy's one.
Thank you, and thank you for facilitating the questions. For the population groups question, it was, I mean, to be honest, area coordination CCM, I mean, before the rollout of ABSM, it was really dependent on displacement patterns and the capacity of partners. So in some cases, the population or the density of IDPs was kind of in a way arranged around hosting displacement locations. So in a way it made sense, and it was kind of operationally feasible for the partner to do the the different coordination functions such as assessment, referrals, preparedness planning for the community as a unit rather than for IDP sites solely. But in other situations where sites were dispersed and required frequent mobile visits, the focus was predominantly in sites. What we're trying to do with ABSM now is to make it, to make it rather than because for ABSM, how we rationalize it is that solutions for IDPs cannot be talked about or be facilitated independently from the situation overall in the area. So that's where we have kind of institutionalized formally the inclusion of different groups, or the way to look at areas as geographical and community units rather than different population groups. Of course, we will still note the conditions of the different population groups and plan for them accordingly. But what we're trying to do in ABSM is to make it almost like a requirement that of other groups is there, because again, the main outcome we're trying to achieve is cohesion, and that cannot be achieved if we're looking at sites independently. And that's how area coordination have grown. But yeah, different experiences with area coordination, but the future is community as a unit. For the alignment question, very good one. And it's a practical concern we've faced in Yemen, as much as it is also a concern in other operations. And how we align, I mean, the key principle is we try to actually stress on is complementarity rather than competition. So that happens through different means in different areas, but at the national level, a dialogue with OCHA, a dialogue with OCHA and the other systems that have, the other stakeholders that have established area coordination, such as recently the IDSF Andrew Piper pilot partners who have established these architecture, area-based coordination architectures to talk about solutions. So what we ask partners and what we try to do with at the national level and the area level is to continue that dialogue in a way that stresses that we're not here really to parallel the existing architecture, but to operate within it. For OCHA specifically, in the Yemen experience, the complementarity has been quite effective, as OCHA hubs usually coordinate at a greater level than what we do at the area level, and all the the information and the planning of that area, or the coordination in general that area coordinators carry on fits pretty well in within the OCHA coordination. So area coordinators while attending OCHA hub meetings such as RCTs, they do present consolidated information about the area. They facilitate intersectoral or they ask OCHA to facilitate the intersectoral allocation decisions, especially around standard allocations, especially if the areas where we work are prioritized. So that's, I think, I hope this answers the question, but happy to add where needed. Back to you, Elena.
Thanks, Walid. And I can see Shabir also posted an interesting comment back from when he was based in Yemen, working with you and the other colleagues there. We have more questions in the chat, but I'm also aware that Rafael has his hand out up for a while, so maybe we want to give him the chance first. Rafael, do you want to ask a question to our speaker, one of our speakers?
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Elena. Apologies for joining the call late. Of course, we had to transit from office to the guest house, so we lose the internet at some point. I don't know, just to introduce myself, I'm Rafael with NRC as Site Management Project Manager for Gaza Response. It's interesting that we being part of this discussion, because this is something that we are looking at also to migrate into based on the fluid context we have here. However, just to ask maybe two specific questions. Number one is, do we consider the area-based site management as an exit strategy for site-level intervention? That is one. And secondly, just to understand more clarity on the difference between clustering of sites and then having an area-based site management. This is because currently we have over 900 sites, and then the capacity of coverage based on site level is just few in terms of the total site we have. And we're looking at the area-based site management as an approach that can expand the coverage. So I just want to maybe get some further point on this and then see how this can be visibly, and then the clear difference between the two different approaches. Over.
Thank you, Rafael. I understand your question is more for the Yemen experience or Haiti?
Yeah, yeah, just from the Yemen experience and maybe on thought of how, because maybe to talk a little bit on the approaches, we're looking at clustering site at area level and allocate to partners. This is what NRC is looking at to start, other than doing the site level where we have few number of sites working in them. So I just want to know how this was visible in case of Yemen, yeah, and how this can be of added value here in Gaza.
Okay, thanks. Off to Walid.
Thank you. So area-based site management, and what we're trying to do with the pilot is definitely not about clustering groups of sites. It is somehow looking at service usage patterns, how people move for services from all different communities to define a catchment area that makes sense for the people, and but also layer that information with how WASH, for example, defines a catchment area if we're talking specifically about water sources and access to water resources, all of that. So it's definitely a number of steps, and I'm happy to share the draft SOP maybe for everyone after this meeting to look also at in detail about these steps to define a geographic area, not necessarily only cluster sites, but treats the area as a unit. So looking at all the needs in and out of sites and how they are interrelated and where they intersect to find common or generate discussions that find common solutions for the people overall. And now if I get it correctly, you were asking about dual partner models. Was that right? Two partners operating within the same area?
Yes.
Yeah,
and
more
area
like
allocation.
yes.
Yeah. So for now, the pilot areas are all coordinated or managed through single partners, but I can speak a little bit on what we did in area coordination. We definitely had situations where I mean, it's also in the TOR of area coordinators that they should kind of mobilize other partners rather than have territorial control or competition over areas. It's actually about not only mobilizing partners but giving them the capacity building needed to share the burden of coordination and delivery of say maintenance, etc. So what has that been in most cases is where one partner, say the coordinator that has managed to consistently through the past 3-4 years be present in the area, but they still have face quite significant resource challenges to say meet the maintenance needs or to support grassroots activities by the community community-led projects. So we do have, for example, in these cases, other partners that work closely with the area coordinator to fill in these gaps. So this is a kind of gap filling modules, but what we're also exploring is one international partner with great experience in CCCM, for example, working closely through different modalities such as sub-granting arrangements, like is the case in the West Coast, for example, with a local partner to build their capacity and share some of the coordination aspects. The important thing here is really from what we've learned is clarifying the lines of communication and the division of labor. Even if that is, quite flexible, it's still important that other stakeholders know exactly who's doing what, because it can be confusing if you're having multiple partners doing the same thing. So it's good to utilize whatever resources and divide the labor in a way that makes sense based on the different two partners' capacities, but as at the same time clarify who is responsible for what and who to contact in case stakeholder requires information or requires to talk about planning. I hope that answered the question, but I did miss the question, so I'm assuming that was your question.
Thanks a lot, Walid. Also, we have some documents from the Yemen cluster link in the guidance note, as well as in the resource matrix that I just linked in the chat that I introduced to you at the beginning of the call. So feel free to also refer to what's linked in the matrix. A couple of questions for FGE. So the first one is on scale down of the CRC operation or exit strategy. So how Mamune is asking, how is the continuity of community resource center, including services and running cost plan for when humanitarian support scale down or exit from Port-au-Prince and Artibonite, where there is also CRC operational. And I think also partially connect, Emi is asking to both, but also to other colleagues that might be in the call and they might want to share their experiences. How CRC can create or are creating a platform to link community needs and propose solution with development partners beyond the cluster system and OCHA coordination. So maybe over to you, FG, if you have anything to share on these points as well. Otherwise, I also encourage other colleagues who might have any interesting inputs on this to raise their hands.
Thanks, Elena. Yeah, those are some really good questions, especially the first one. It's $1 million question when it comes to CRC continuity. Like I mentioned during the presentation, one of the things that we need to think about is handing over these structures and their operation to the local authorities in those areas. So either the CASEC or the ASEC to be able to work on community issues, find solutions together, and actually implement any sort of section communal development plans that they have and that they've drafted in coordination with the central government. But however, I mean, just realistically speaking, I don't think that this is something that's very realistic at the moment. And, you know, in Haiti, there are no elected officials, whereas it's supposed to be the case, which is unfortunate. I think there's a lot of appointments going on and there's a lot of turnover. Which also means that sometimes people working in these structures are not necessarily representing or representative of the voices of the communities that they're working in. So just operationally speaking, to maintain continuity, From our side, especially going towards 2026, and I'm sure we're all kind of in this position where, there's this tiny little funding gap that exists, between December and February and March, where we're all supposed to kind of scramble and try to find solutions for a number of different things, prioritizing different interventions. So operationally, from my side, one of the things that we tried to do is work with ICDH, so our national NGO partner, to be able to try to secure some co-funding from their side to maintain the running costs of the CRCs, because we are working with a local NGO, they often have better contracts with landowners, right? So these structures are not necessarily built from scratch. Those are existing structures that belong to someone and that we are renting from. National NGOs most of the time have a better deal with these landowners. So we're able to maintain that presence for a bit longer without having necessarily confirmed funding. And yeah, I mean, I think this is the case for a lot of the missions nowadays, is we have to scramble to the best of our abilities when it comes to funding, and every single month counts, right? If we can maintain the CRC activities for at least one more month, this makes a world of a difference for the communities that we're working with, because displacement doesn't end when, finances end, right? So ultimately, the biggest, thing that we would need to start planning for and thinking about is handing over to local authorities. But again, that's a really, really challenging thing to do. But it definitely needs to, be part of the overall CRC programming from the start. The second question, was it how do we link CRC projects with development partners beyond the cluster system?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good question as well, and ultimately it is the goal. Yeah, it's correct. I mean, for now, definitely a lot of our interventions are humanitarian focused and not directly linked to development outcomes. But this is something that we'd like to explore with our transition and recovery unit, who does a lot of work with the different ministries here in the country when it comes to, again, development outputs and outcomes and objectives. And it's a good point. We'd like to do this a little bit more. Working with civil society helps us go beyond humanitarian work, right? Because they are all very concerned with social development and so on. And these are very, soft component-y style development outcomes. But when it comes to harder component stuff, like, if we are to think about, say, water treatment or, solid waste management, which is a really big problem here, those are all things that, we'd like to explore more with the transition and recovery partners further down the line. Yeah, I think that's it from my side. Thanks.
Thanks, FT. As a reflection, I also think that in certain contexts, the local authorities themselves could be a good entry point to link CRCs with development partners or development focused initiatives that might be ongoing in the area, and try to help us expanding a little bit the reach beyond humanitarian and coordination. Okay, so I see a lot of hands up. So just in order, as they are on my screen, we'll go to Rafael, then Francesco, and then Abdi Majid. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Rafael?
Yes, thank you so much, Elena, again. I just want to comment on this point because it's very important. From previous experience where we implemented the area-based approach with the Community Resource Center, because it referred to many things. For us, we refer to it as UDOC Center, but it performed the same function. So one of the key challenges is the fact that when we wanted to phase out, we could not hand over this community center to the people because it is funded. We pay rent for it yearly, and the rent amount, the community could not afford that. Even though it is very important for the community at that point because of the coordination was easy, and then we're able to link it closer to all the neighborhood we're working with, but it's difficult to continue because the community could not afford. So for us, as a way of recommendation, when planning a resource center or a community center, it is important to identify already existing governance structure or existing community structure where we can have an agreement of with the community or with the host government to utilize the Center for Community Coordination and Hope so that the transition and handover will be easy for us when pulling out. It makes it easy for whatever we have going to continue, and then also the community can be able to access the space. But in our case, it was not possible because the community could not afford the space. Now, in terms of linkages, another option is to have a temporary setting, like you can either use the tabs or something to create a space, identify a space, and have a temporary establishment, probably with minimal investment, whereby it can serve as a community center or the resource center where all activities continue, and this is easier to hand over to community for continuity. Then in terms of linkages with development organization, I think it serves as a crucial point for us because we're able to engage from the linking the IDPs within host communities with services. As time goes on, the IDPs begin to develop themselves, and then instead of having requests coming to us for need for emergency shelter, we started receiving requests from IDP saying, okay, I've been able to secure a land, I need support for a shelter plan. So we were able to link this with a lot of development donors like the UNDP that we work with, and a lot were able to get a permanent structure on their own land as compared to previously where the major support were emergency. So of course, the community centers serve as a hub, not just for humanitarian, but as well as the development, because part of the purpose is actually to create social cohesion, promote integration between the IDPs as well as the host community for a more sustainability in the future. So I think it's important to share this based on that. Over.
Thanks a lot, Rafael. These are very valid points. I can see a lot of interest around exit strategy. Maybe a topic for a next webinar in 2026. Let us know in the chat. I am handing over to Francesco and Abdimajid. Please be aware we are actually running out of time, and there is also a very interesting question I would like to close the webinar with. So please, if you can be brief in your question and also tell us to whom you're addressing your question, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elena. I will be very brief. I know your time is up. My name is Abdimajid from Acted CCCM Somalia. Thank you for organizing this webinar. I just wanted to ask too, in terms of the transition of from the site level to area-based approach, is kind of more effective and also has improved coordinations at the Somalia level, and also it avoided or reduced the application of resources. So it is something that is been welcome, and something that we need to transition fully from site level to also area based. So I was just asking if we can translate fully instead of partially to this area based approach. And that secondly, in terms of the exit strategy, you can understand there's a global CCM exit strategy standard, but I was asking how often is it reviewed, those exit strategy? Over. Thank you.
Thank you. And Francesco, then we'll direct the question to our speaker and close.
Thank you, Elena. Hello, colleague. This is Francesco, CCCM Cluster Coordinator in Haiti. No, it was just to share with you some reflection we are doing at ACT and ICCG level, because as FG was saying, in Port-au-Prince, the spontaneous sites are very congested. So the idea was how to decongestion this site, and we put on the table the relocation strategy. We talking with the relocation, we had some challenges because it was not a durable relocation. So we are now talking about durable relocation, and HCT put in place a working group just to strategize on durable relocation of IDPs from Haiti to safety areas. And to do that, in the strategy, we proposed CRC to support this transition. So when IDPs are moved voluntary from Port-au-Prince to this safety area, we are thinking to put in place in this area CRC. This will give two impact, we think, from a side, capacity building to authorities in putting in place service mapping in the area, and advocate to improve access to basic services. The other side, there is for a durable relocation, we were thinking to access to income generating activities, credit, job, yes, to create a job in those areas. So the CRC will give a task on will get a task as advocacy, but on services needed by relocated IDPs, but also host communities, and coordinate a little bit the priority and the response. In the first months of the relocation, we were thinking between 6 months and 12 months before hand over these services to authorities. So this is the idea we are checking, and we are with other cluster coordinators, but also with the cluster lead agency, to have durable relocation that are not only based on rental or transport subsidies, but an accompaniment that we can provide in the relocation communities. So this is something we are working on. Is not yet implemented, but we hope to implement it in 2026. Thank you very much for.
Thanks a lot, Francesco. So that's very interesting, and it's great to see how area-based site management is embedded in the cluster strategy in Yemen, as Walid explained to us, with this cluster-led process of transitioning to area-based site management, and the SOP that the cluster is finalizing, as well as in Haiti. So two very different and far contexts, but that also proves the relevance of the area-based site management framework. Maybe I just want to give our speaker one last question that coupled also with what Abdi Majid shared from Somalia. It's a question related to communities, as in the end, the displacement affected communities are those we serve. So would like to know both from Walid and FG how community level concerns, priorities, and feedback are captured and communicated upward with the support of the site management agency to subnational and national coordination structure. And then Walid, if you could also answer the question from Abdimajid, maybe sharing some reflection on the pilot, ABSM pilot in Yemen, and transitioning from a site level to an area level response. There was also a question from Awet related to mandate, and I believe this was answered by Walid, but maybe if you can elaborate a bit more specifically on how the cluster is supporting Arab-based site management in ensuring Arab-based site management partners in ensuring that their mandates are clear with other stakeholders and also with other cluster. That would be great. So over to Walid and then FG.
Thank you. I'll maybe take a few questions, and then FG will help me out to answer in also other questions. But the transition for ABSM from site level to ABSM responses acknowledges that this is feasible. This is feasible in many locations, but there are locations or sites where site management, traditional site management, if I may call it that, is going to be the most feasible kind of response. So while we try to aim for an overall, rollout of ABSM, we acknowledge that that might not be feasible everywhere, and that's why a criteria for the best candidate for ABSM is set. For example, as does the IDP density make it operationally beneficial to do ABSM there? Are the community IDP relations inducive of community cohesion? Is the area, also we can look also at other factors like, does it make sense in the specific context and at the specific time? Sometimes a more protracted nature of displacement is kind of more feasible for an evolution to area-based site management. But if the displacement is quite dynamic, then the partner may, and it also depends on many factors, but one way is to focus at single sites, and then rather than immediately rolling out ABSM. So it does depend on a few factors that we've discussed and set on the SOP for anyone to refer to, but it also needs a bit of contextualization where appropriate. But the bottom line here is that no, ABSM doesn't have to be rolled out everywhere in a single operation. It can be done jointly with the traditional kind of support. And on the role of the CMAs or the cluster coordination, excellent question. And things. This also brings me back to the clarification of division of labor, where cluster role does maintain strategic coordination. It's like setting coordination standards, SOPs, TORs for area coordinators. Supporting, facilitating area coordination forums through constant advocacy with RCTs, ICCG, etc. But also consolidating area level information for national level decision making, especially around HPC, and also providing or facilitating capacity building and technical guidance to implementing partners. So that's to name a few, but also working with the cluster lead agency or cluster management agency to leverage their good relations with local authorities. Usually, lead agencies have maintained strong relationships with authorities, and
and that makes them critical for supporting the role of area coordinators in the field. Key principle here is ABA, is not about the cluster doing anything. It's about creating, a platform where partners, cluster lead agency, authorities come together at the right geographical scale. If that answers the question, but back to you, Elena.
Thank you so much, Walid. Maybe some final words from FG on ensuring that community concerns are shared with between areas coordination mechanism.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question as well, but again, I think it's very context specific and even catchment area specific, because feedback coming from the different population groups that we are working with will most likely be very different, even though most of these population groups are accessing the same services, although some services may be accessible by some and not by others. Again, the different levels of populations that we work with, IDPs, host communities, host communities hosting IDPs, deportees, and so on, they will all have some very different level of concerns and priorities. The challenge is to be able to bring all of those together, not us, but them. So creating these workshops to be able to bring them together and discuss their joint challenges, guide and support the prioritization of these priorities and feedback and concerns, and help us, communicate these upwards to the best of our abilities. Again, it's very catchment area specific. It's always quite a challenge to be able to truly incorporate them the way that the communities would have wanted us to incorporate them in programming, because the majority, and if not all, of their concerns, relate to state social services, social services that are supposed to be provided by the state, that are not necessarily very effective or existent, such as the provision of water, electricity, waste management, solid and liquid waste management, cash, security, going back home, legal support, and so on. So all of these things are mostly social service related, just public normal services that people don't have access to. And we are here to kind of cover the gap to the best of our abilities whilst, staying within our mandate, even though a lot of the times we sometimes do go beyond the mandate, but that again, context specific. And I believe that every single mission here has their experience when it comes to integrating, community level concerns. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, FG. And indeed, as much as it's always inspiring to hear experiences from different operations, it's important that we always contextualize to our specific operation. That's great. I linked some additional resources. I think thanks for your patience. We are out of time, but I really, really want to thank you for your active participation. Once again, we have our coordination in area-based site management guidance note published on our webpage, so please go and check it out. And we hope to see you in 2026. You can reach out to me or Isabel, writing to our email addresses. And if you haven't subscribed to our working group updates, you find the link into our webpage. Any final words, Isabel?
Oh, I don't think so. I think that's everything. Thank you everyone for staying for so long. We really appreciate your participation. I hope everyone has a good seasonal break. And we'll hopefully see you all next year.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you, colleague.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.